everyone, it's Maki here. What do you think the Gundam stories are built around? There's actually been a pretty active discussion about this among fans in Japan over the past few days. The topic is this: does Gundam promote anti-war ideas? It's a story in which robots appear and fight. Some people argue that by portraying war in a stylish and cool way, it ends up glorifying it. What do you think about that? This time, I'd like to explore this topic by focusing on the words of Mr. Yoshiyuki Tomino, creator of the original 0079 series and the man who laid the foundation for many subsequent Gundam series. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. On this channel, we're offering a membership for just 99 cents a month. If you decide to join, you'll receive a name badge and special comment stamps to say thank you. Alright, let's get started. First, let's consider Tomino's perspective. However, the concept of Tomino's opinion is actually quite tricky. Even among his fans, it is often said that he changes his views quite frequently. As I researched various sources, I found that this is a perfectly understandable opinion. However, it is also the result of him constantly gathering and analyzing new information. Another notable trait is that when speaking to adults, Tomino often uses very complex phrasing. Depending on how you interpret his words, what counts as Tomino's opinion can vary considerably. This time, I'll be introducing one of his viewpoints, but please bear in mind that it's just one example. While exploring his statements, I came across a moment when he expressed his thoughts clearly and concisely. This was during an interview in August 2005 on a TV network called Japan Broadcasting Corporation. Japan Broadcasting Corporation is a public broadcaster that aims to deliver information as neutrally and accurately as possible. 2005 was also the year that the theatrical version of Zeta Gundam was released. The final part, the third installment, was released the following year in 2006. Until Reconquista in G was produced in 2014, Tomino did not create any new Gundam works. Therefore, these words come from a point in his life when he could be seen as reflecting on all the Universal Century Gundam works he had created up to the time. What thoughts went into creating the Gundam stories? The interviewer asks Tomino a question. When you were creating Gundam, did you assume that children would be watching it? Tomino answers simply, "Of course." Taking in his response, the interviewer continued, "Humans fighting, people fighting each other, wouldn't that kind of situation be painful or distressing for children to watch? What did you want to convey to the audience through these kinds of scenarios?" Tomino's answer went like this. "Yes, that's exactly why I wanted to say killing each other is painful, so you should stop. In other words, no battle is without casualties. Presenting fiction where no one is injured would be even worse. On that point, I did not want to lie. That's all I wanted to convey. I believe that children would be more impacted by this message than adults, because it leaves a lasting and vivid memory. However, I also realized my own limitations. I regret that my work was not recognized as a lesson for the real world. It pains me that I could not prevent people in the real world from supporting war." That is Tomino's view. In this interview, he speaks very clearly and concisely about the thought processes behind his work. Of course, we should remember that these views are from 2005, but they are still a useful reference point. The Gundam series is often described as a story for children, yet known for its serious tone. Tomino chose to portray painful and harsh situations honestly precisely because the series was intended for children. As I mentioned earlier, the underlying theme of his stories was that killing each other is painful and should be stopped. Fans can interpret this theme in their own way. It wouldn't be wrong to interpret his work as anti-war. However, Tomino also said that delivering this message to children rather than adults would make it stick in the memory more strongly. He is directing the message "Stop fighting" towards the children who will shape the future. So who starts wars? Adults do. Tomino is speaking to children, not adults. Depending on your interpretation, this could also be taken to mean that it is pointless to try to reason with adults who already support war. Of course, please bear in mind that this is my personal, rather critical interpretation. If you think along these lines, it's also possible to interpret it as not anti-war. After all, he is not speaking to people who have already accepted war. How do you interpret Tomino's words? Even in Reconquista in G, produced around 10 years after this interview, I get the impression that his ideas are still present, albeit evolving. A symbolic example of this is the photon torpedo scene. The photon torpedo is an extremely powerful weapon. It breaks people down into particles of light and makes them disappear. Overwhelmed by its destructive power, the protagonist falls into fear and despair. In a half-panicked state, he lets go of the weapon. The child protagonist experiences the pain of killing. Now, bearing that reaction in mind, let's look at another scene. This one takes place right after the heroine's father dies. She stands there, stunned by the reality of his death. The protagonist tells her you can grieve later. Given that they are on the battlefield, this is a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But doesn't it feel unsettling that the protagonist, who has experienced the pain of death, is speaking such coldly logical words? If you remain paralyzed by grief, you will die too, so you must act. Logically, this way of thinking is correct. However, it can also seem to deny human emotion. To me, it seems as though Tomino is conveying the message that killing is painful as well as presenting the audience with a clear image of people who have become accustomed to killing. Many fans are probably uncomfortable with the suggestion that it glorifies war. To be honest, when someone says the Gundam series glorifies war, I want to respond, that's not right. However, it is also true that Tomino portrayed robots in a cool and appealing way to meet the expectations of sponsors. In many of his writings, he has said something along the lines of because there are investors, I am able to create and present stories. That's why I made every effort to fulfill the requests. Therefore, it is also true that Tomino depicted combat in a cool way. We cannot completely dismiss the idea that it glorifies war. Nevertheless, there is great value in captivating children with cool robots and drawing them into the story. When children become absorbed in Gundam and watch the story repeatedly, they are more likely to discover the themes Tomino wanted to convey through their own sensibilities. No matter how meaningful a lesson may be, if it is never discovered, unfortunately it becomes meaningless. Commercial methods are often criticized, but they are also effective in delivering a story's themes to a wider audience. Could both anti-war and glorification of war coexist within the Gundam series? The real danger lies in oversimplifying things and insisting that only one perspective is true. That's my view. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next episode.